You are listening to WRC 88.7 FM, Elmhurst College Radio. This is Good Times Friday, on every Friday from 8 to 10 p.m. I'm your host, Jimmy Lisiaga. Very, very glad to be here. It's been a crazy week, very, very busy week. I hope that everybody out there has been keeping your head above water. Literally, of course, because we have had a lot of rain in the past week, but there's nothing wrong with that because rain brings growth, and really growth is all that we need, I think. But it's going to be a great show tonight. I'm here with a great musical act, as well as a great producer, owner of his own record label. We're here with Brian Eaton. Sorry, we're here with Brian Eaton and John Stubman. Gentlemen, how's it going?
Good, Jimmy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. So this song playing in the background, this is the first track off of your latest album.
Correct.
The name of this song is Sobriety.
Correct. Yes.
Would you like to tell us a bit about this song?
Sure. We were talking a little bit before the interview and how the evolution of this song came about. Basically, I had written an acoustic version, which was really, the original Sobriety was really the part 2 on this record, Sobriety 2. And I'd sat on that for years. And then when I decided a couple of years ago that went into the studio and was going to record my latest project here, about half the record was older stuff that I had written, been kind of had in the vault for, some of it might be about 15 years old. Wow. That goes back, give or take. But and Sobriety was one of them. And so obviously that I didn't have enough for a full record. Mm-hmm. So obviously I had about the other half of the record I needed to record, and actually not just record but write. So as I was writing some of the new stuff for the record to make sure it would be a full-length record, this tune kind of came about from some of the same chords from the original Sobriety. And as it evolved and kind of took on a life of its own, I decided that I thought this was just, this was it. This was the opening track to the record. And I was going to call this one Sobriety and put the original Sobriety as kind of part 2. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how it came to pass there. So it was one of those things that just kind of took a life of its own. Once I got into the studio, started writing and adding things to it and everything, and once it took on its own, that's how songs can be sometimes. They kind of really just take on a life of their own. And the next thing I know, I've got this great gem that I knew was going to be the opening cut to the record, and that's basically how it came to be. And I decided that was going to be the original Sobriety. Mm-hmm. So even though it technically wasn't, but yeah, there's some correlations with that, with the other part, the part 2 to Sobriety later in the record. That's definitely more acoustic driven and was the original chord progression. But yeah, if you listen to them carefully, some people might not pick up on it, others would. There are some subtleties in the chord progression and stuff that are borrowed from that I borrowed off that one for the new one. So yeah.
Right. So Brian, tell us about, because this is still, or that, we're getting into the second question here of the whole interview, and it's going to be a great one. What do you think people should know about you right off the bat, right now? Like, what should people know about what Brian Eaton does, about what Brian Eaton writes? What should they know?
Well, I guess I want to focus on the unique factor is that I wrote, produced, performed, sang every instrument and vocal on this record. So it's literally a one-man show. Wow. I don't know a whole lot of artists besides, Paul McCartney's one of those cats that can kind of do that. But yeah, I would think that's a unique thing that sets me apart. I was able to do everything myself. So I recorded the drums, I did the bass, I did all the keyboard stuff or piano stuff, the guitars, and of course all the vocals. And wrote it all, produced it all, recorded it all, and mastered it all. So that's a lot of hats to wear. And then on top of all that, to put it out on my own label that I've had since 1992, it's almost too many hats to wear. But yeah, it's you talk about a one-man show. I mean, that's it doesn't get much more involved than that, where it's you're wearing everything from the artist hat to the record label and promoting it. I would think that's the biggest unique factor that I bring to this whole thing. So,
how do you like doing it? Just you, because you've been working in music for years.
Yeah,
So
almost 20 years now. Yeah.
So what is it like putting down all the tracks yourself? Is it any easier as far as not having to work with like a personality that may not be working, or?
Yeah, that's a great question actually, because I had talked about this in another interview, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, the greatest part of doing it all by yourself is not working with a band is you have one, total control over the creative process.
Mm-hmm.
No fighting or bickering between bandmates. So that in and of itself is probably the greatest advantage, because yeah, he and I have been there, we've done that, and not that John and I used to fight and bicker over creative processes, but add the other two guys that were in the band, and I've been in other bands too, and he has, and yeah, you get 4 or 5 guys together, and to try to get everybody on the same page creatively, you're gonna bump heads at times with certain things, and sometimes, sometimes the compromises you're not happy with, you know, and maybe you think, well, I really think my idea is better, but you capitulate to the other guys in the group, and because maybe it's 3 against 1, and you're kind of the outsider with your opinion, and you gotta live with it, but maybe you're not happy with it. So yeah, I mean, it's like a marriage or any kind of relationship, you know, there's always going to be tons of compromises. Me, I only compromise with myself, but sometimes I'm my own worst enemy, because you go back and listen to stuff you do in the studio and stuff, and you're like, that's got to be better, I need to change this, and you hear it with a fresh ear the next day, and you know, and you're trying to be as critical as you can and step out of you as the artist and look at it from like, okay, from a producer's hat, and try to look at yourself as like not yourself, and from the other side of the fence, and try to be really objective. And sometimes that's hard to do because you're so involved, married to your music like that. So that's a tough situation when it does come to be a solo artist who's producing their own album in the studio. So sometimes there was times that I really wanted like an outside producer that I would know and trust, and bring him in and like, I really need your opinion on this. Am I going the right direction with? I need to bounce these ideas off of somebody that I can trust.
Right.
I did that a little bit. I did that with John and another buddy of mine who's a fantastic guitar player, Mike McFadden, and they kind of lend me their ears. And when I thought I was ready, you know, at the point where I really had something like, I'm at that threshold where I really need to play this for somebody and get their opinion, like, am I on the right track here? Or, because after a while you start second guessing yourself sometimes, and you're like, I think it's really good, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, so those are the pros and cons definitely to working by yourself as a solo act, sure.
And Brian, you also said that yourself and John, you guys have been working together for a couple of years now. You guys were.
Oh God,
you
no,
guys
way
were,
back.
Yeah, because you.
92 we go back to.
From the band North.
Correct.
Right? That's
correct.
what we're talking about. Why don't you tell us about what is it that has kept you guys together and still working together?
Similar musical interests.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what brought us together. That's what kept us together. I mean, John and I out of that band North ended up probably becoming like best friends.
Really?
And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and then to this day, it just stayed that way. The other guys that left, even though like the singer, John's known him longer than he's known me. When I first met John, I met him through the singer, because that was who I met first. And then he's like, hey, I know this great guitarist, and let's get a band going. So I met John through him. But John and our old singer, Don from North, they went to high school together. So he's known them longer, but John and I are definitely, we stay more connected than like he and Don does, or our bass player Nick from the band. Even though we keep in touch, but we're not that connected. I occasionally see him at a show or something like that and say hi, or call him up once in a while and stuff like that. But I mean, John and I are probably talking at least weekly a few times or whatever. So yeah, so
That's
we just ended up being really good friends, and I think that was what kind of led to that friendship. Was like he said, was the similar musical interests. So. Yeah.
Well, you know what, man, that's awesome. It's always, whenever you guys are putting out art, because that's what I consider music to be art. I'm sure as you guys would too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There has to be that connection. There can be no subconscious thing, keeping you from being completely compatible with that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
If that's there, then it's gonna suffer.
Right.
And
Yeah, exactly. We're kindred souls when it comes to musical taste, and that's what's kind of kept the friendship going, and that's why I brought John in, because going out obviously and doing anything live with this, I can't run from the drums to the guitars and everything else and the bass and try and do it all live, so I have to bring somebody in. So that's what we're trying to work on now, is maybe putting a band together. Love to get a drummer going at least, and start with a 3-piece and then take it from there. But my first, the first guy I thought of was like, call John.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So
Well, guys, that's awesome. Everybody out there listening, you're listening to WRC 88.7 FM, Elmhurst College Radio. This is Good Times Friday, and every Friday from 8 to 10 p.m. I'm your host, Jimmy Lisiaga. Very, very glad to be here with Brian Eaton. I keep saying Eaton. I'm so sorry, John.
Eaton.
Yeah, Eaton. I am joined here with Brian Eaton and John Studman. It's just the
Those
two
last
names.
names.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Brian Eaton, John Studman. Thank you guys so much for
It's
being
the
on.
English-German dichotomy.
The English-German.
Yeah.
Studman. What we saying earlier? Would it
Yeah,
be Studman?
Studman. Yes,
Studman.
Studman. That's right. That's right.
Brian Eaton, John Studman. Gentlemen, we'll be right back with you guys after this. We're gonna play the song "Crazy" off of your album, which is actually a cover by Seal.
Correct.
It's a Seal.
The
cover.
Seal cover tune, create his mega hit. Yep, and this is available now all out on iTunes. So.
All right, guys. This
Okay.
is Brian Eaton, WRC.